Life is an emergent property, and in this video I would like to focus on the essence of life and the essence of really true knowledge which we need to support the evolution of humanity and I believe all beings on this planet. So last video I know I introduced maybe many of you already knew this, but I introduced the two different principles, the right and left paradigm, the right and left pillars. That's Ahrimanic and Luciferic. And in my discussion of those two, I mentioned that Luciferic impulses really kind of are more felt to bring humanity, to bring humans to what I think it wants to create in humanity, kind of a more, well, I'm more evolved, I'm more spiritual than you. And I'm not going to deal with the pettiness of the materialistic realm. I'm going to go above and beyond that. And in omitting and ignoring that which is material, we do a great disservice to our own human evolution. Now, on the other end, there is Ahrimanic. And Ahriman does really value materialism to the extent that it's ignoring that which is spiritual. And that's really where we are today. In modern education, we are just ignoring the spiritual essence of all true science. And that's why I'm naming this video today Spiritual Science, because that's really, I think, the important endeavor that will help us get through this time period of Ahriman. Now, I also mentioned in the last video that I very much believe, at least I have this inkling of inner knowing, that Ahriman has incarnated. I think Ahriman, he or she, is walking on the planet Earth. And many people, know that what we're going through right now with, the fear that's being put forth in front of humanity to direct their behavior. And that's really all it is. That's what fear is doing. It's directing the behavior of humanity to perhaps accept a poison injection, to accept covering up of the beautiful face, the smile, the ability to connect with facial expression, and to kind of go into this more materialistic drone type of pattern. I mean, all humans look the same if we're covering up, our face, that which is most expressive, that which it connects most. And I don't want to talk too much about that, but it's a very much an Ahrimanic tactic which is going on right now, which is making me think Ahriman is here. And the current pandemic that is unfolding has been the idea of the Ahrimanic impulse. So we have Luciferianism, Luciferic, Ahriman, and in the middle is the Christ impulse. Okay, so with the Christ impulse, which I think, again, with spiritual science, it's the following that essence, that impulse, which will help humanity evolve and which will bring about a state that is truly possible, I believe, on this planet where we don't have disease. In my health consultations, when I'm working with clients to help them improve their health, many of them have questions like, well, I want to get into fasting and I want to, do a cleanse. And those are great. I think almost any cleanse where you kind of omit processed foods and you're omitting things which are not natural, things which don't belong into our sacred biological frame, it really will help the flow, the vital force, to express itself more genuinely. We have a vital force. And this vital force is what animates all of our life. And it's not just the vital force in humans. I mean, all living beings have a vital force. Plants, animals, it's there. And it's being ignored again by science. I've been looking into recently some of the amazing properties of water. And we know that water exists in 3 states, at least, in the sciences where I teach as a college professor. I teach at a college. That's my full-time job. We say that there is we all know the liquid state of water, obviously, and then there's the gaseous state, the vapor, and then there's the solid state of water, ice. There's a 4th state, though, that some scientists, and I think very recently a scientist in not Germany, in Seattle, Washington, and his name is Jerry Pollack, perhaps. I don't know. Maybe I'll put his name underneath my face here in the screen because I forgot it because it's been a recent investigation. But he's describing the 4th state of water and how it behaves in the cell, how it behaves in various interactions with various surfaces. And I think this is quite important to study. So water, like for instance, if we expose it to an electrical surface, a surface that is hydrophilic. Hydrophilic means something that has charge. And anything that has charge is going to interact with water because water is a dipole. Water has 2 sides to it. It has a positive side, it has a negative side. And so it's going to be attracted to things that have a charge. Well, what happens to water in this 4th state is that when it's exposed to something that is, hopefully I'm saying this correctly, because my background in physics is just basically what I needed to know to get into medical school. But piezoelectricity, like our cell membranes, our phospholipid bilayers in the cell, it has a charge across it, okay, a potential. So the inside of our cell is negative, the outside of our cell is positive. And this potential is very important to maintain because it helps with a lot of physiological processes. And I talk about this in the anatomy and physiology course that I teach to my traditional students and to my natural health students, which I'm going to be talking about that today in just a bit. But I want to stay on point. So in our cells, we have a membrane, a cell membrane, the plasma membrane, which is charged, internally negative, externally positive. And then the water inside and outside of that cell membrane behaves differently than the liquid state. So what it's doing is it's creating this 4th state of water where it's kind of, they describe it as kind of an exclusion zone where it's really hard for things to get into that area. And how does this impact the ability of our blood and our lymphatic fluids to distribute things within the body and out of the body? So it's amazing. And so not only does water have this property, but water itself, as they were further investigating, and so by the way, before I move on, that by itself will just definitely change physiology. We think we know so much, we know everything about the human body, and we know exactly how it works. We don't. We don't know as much as we think we do. Or perhaps we only know one certain perspective, which is an interesting perspective, but this was a betting game. Would you put all of your cards or put all of your chips into this perspective as being what it is? And so, being that the human body and all living systems are mostly water, and water behaves in this 4th state, it will impact how things interact with cells. But not only that, water can create electricity. So, coming back to my clients that ask about fasting, and does man need to eat? There was something I was listening to recently, about man's requirement for food. And perhaps that came with the fall of man. Maybe we were not requiring food in the form of, nutrients to maintain our essence, to maintain our electrical being, because we are electrical. We have an electrical potential throughout. A book I'm reading like 5 books at the time. At any given time when I go to bed at night, I kind of pick one of the many books I'm reading and read it until I get sleepy, and then, I pass off into the ethers. But, what is it called? It's The Electrical Body or something like that. Anyway, it's about electricity. And this person, again, I'm terrible with the names. I'll show a picture of the book. But it's a book I actually purchased in 2009, and I think I read a little bit of it here and there, but I picked it up again recently as I was getting into water and its fourth state and its properties. So this electrical essence of water, and it can create electricity. And basically, everything that creates energy in us is based upon electricity. When we look at cellular respiration, one of the main physiological processes in the end product of producing what is called ATP, adenosine triphosphate, is what is called the electron transport chain. And in the electron transport chain, electrons, which are involved in holding atoms together. So when you have a carbohydrate molecule like glucose, is basically carbons and hydrogens and oxygens all held together by electrons. And during the process of breaking those food molecules down, electrons are released. And then those electrons are carried to what is called the electron transport chain. And the end product of the electron transport chain is the oxygen we inhale. And as we attract those electrons, we are producing ATP, adenosine triphosphate, ATP. And then that ATP does everything within our body, all of our physiological expressions, walking, talking, digestion, growth, all of it is requiring ATP. We need that. We need that molecule. It helps to, maintain the electrical potential. Again, that transmembrane potential across our cell membranes, which comes down to something called the sodium-potassium pump. It's constantly pumping out sodium, pumping in potassium, creating that electrical charge, again, influencing the fourth state of water. So it all comes back together. And so if water itself, perhaps we didn't even need the food molecule to break down to create that electricity, perhaps water could have done that for us. And maybe there is something to be looking at in more seriousness regarding the requirement of humanity to need food. Now, I'm not telling everybody to go out there and just start water fasting. I don't think that is necessarily realistic. I think water fasting has its place, and it is incredibly healing. I studied with Dr. Joel Fuhrman back in 1998 when I was in medical school, and he was doing water fasting, or he was helping clients, his patients, really, he's a medical doctor. He was helping his patients heal chronic disease with nothing but water. And I remember there was a man there who was denied his 4th cardiac bypass surgery. I've shared this story before. But the only thing that prevented him from having another very invasive surgery was going on a water fast, because his insurance wasn't going to pay for one more cardiac bypass surgery. And, maybe in a roundabout way, his insurance company, in denying him, saved his life, because then he picked up not only the benefit of cleansing his body thoroughly. I think he water fasted for more than 40 days. And it was medically supervised, and part of what I was doing there was, monitoring blood values, checking the blood, making sure various electrolyte levels weren't too out of whack. Because water fasting, I think, as healing as it is, so many people on this planet are so toxic. They're not ready for that type of invasive. No, I don't want to say that. It's not invasive at all. But they're not ready for that type of aggressive is a better word, way to heal. And as part of him water fasting, he was also learning about the principles of natural hygiene, which I very much value. Um, Amazing pioneers like Herbert Shelton and Tilden, these individuals, which were proponents of natural hygiene and the value of nature, the value of really only taking in pure foods and pure water and using water fasting for healing. That's basically what natural hygiene is. It's a fascinating field, and if you don't know about natural hygiene, you really should look into it. So, in natural hygiene, water fasting is used quite commonly. And so, water fasting, again, can help people heal. It can help cleanse the body lymphatically and clear out all of the tissue spaces, which, I think a safer way to go about that, knowing how toxic so many humans are right now, is maybe perhaps using a more gentler cleanse, focusing on foods that, again, come in their natural state. So I really recommend to people not to read anything that has an ingredient, not to consume, not to eat anything that has an ingredient label. Because that means it's not natural. It's not in that state from the earth from which it came. So, plants in their natural state, fruits, vegetables, the water. Those really should be the only foods you're eating if you are ill, because your body requires energy to remove that which should not be there. And I know I'm kind of going off on a tangent here. We're going to come back to the emergent, what life is an emergent property and spiritual science. But I think we've lost something in becoming so toxic and ill that now people cannot live on just water alone. And I really think that might have been, our natural state when and this is just, something that is coming to my mind as I'm talking about this, but think about the Bible and in Genesis. Eve was tempted by the devil to eat from the tree of knowledge. I think that's what it was. I went to Catholic school as a child, and I don't remember all of the stories. But she ate the apple from the tree of knowledge. Is that what it was called? And that's when man fell, per se. Perhaps there's something to look at when we study the Bible, and I think the Bible is an amazing book. And it's not, there's one thing to read the Gospels, to read the Bible, and to understand it as a literal manifestation of a book. But look into it more as a spiritual endeavor. I feel like I'm looking kind of blurry. Okay. And maybe it was just the act of eating, and that's where man fell. Now we require food. We require something. We can't just be on this planet. But maybe we needed to go through that, because working our way back out of it is the knowledge we needed to take on as a species to evolve. We could have stayed at that plane where we were just these spiritual beings that didn't have to eat. We just existed, and we could just drink water, and the electrical potential of water maintained the electron transport chain that kept us, active and expressive. And then we started consuming foods. And apples are healthy, right? So if you're gonna eat food, eat some apples. Eat any fruit, really, any water-rich fruit. That's the ideal food for man, in my opinion. Vegetables are pretty good as well. But and then the herbs. The herbs, I think, coming back to if you are somebody that needs to heal, there are many herbs that can help address certain parts of the body. And, the herbs, when you look at them from a spiritual perspective, not just looking at them as a physical plant, because herbs are just simply plants. So when you're taking in herbs, you're taking in food, right? And when you look at the herb, though, study it in its natural state. What does this herb look like? Does it look like a certain part of our body that might have helped our elders, helped our ancestors determine what that herb benefited in our body? I think there is some benefit in reflecting upon things like that, as well as many other. They talk about the shamans who, like in South America and whatnot, they knew these plants and how they worked. I mean, how in the hell can a shaman know that two different plants, when combined to create ayahuasca, would then create in humans this experience, this spiritual experience that would allow such insight of their lives? I mean, I've never done ayahuasca. I find the whole premise to be quite fascinating, though. But then you have to, balance that, right? So this is where we come back to Luciferianism and the Ahrimanic impulses. Someone that just wants to do ayahuasca nonstop, that's very Luciferic. That's mystical. That's keeping them in a realm that, again, there's not that streetwise spirituality where you have to have your feet on the ground, and yet you're open to the spiritual Christ impulse, the middle path that is going to continue the evolution of humanity. So we are beings that exist materialistically. And the lesson right now that we are on, or the path we are on now, that we need to evolve within, is that path. Materialistic and spiritual, not highlighting one or the other. And we need to keep ourselves aware of Ahriman, who I think is here walking on the planet now, perhaps trying to guide us in a direction where we think we can avoid the lessons that needed to be learned for our evolution. Rudolf Steiner said back in the late 1800s, early 1900s, that the earth, our beautiful mother, she is starting to age. And, who knows how much longer our earth can stay as a planet to support us. Well, I shouldn't even say it that way. But the earth, and I'm not going to try to guess how much longer, but humanity, our essence, our human essence, will surpass that. And instead of us, all dying altogether, Earth and all of life on Earth, all vanishing, and then what is learned from that? We will carry on. Our essence will carry on. And I'm sure there are many other planets that can support the type of karmic lessons we need to learn. But here we are now today in this karmic lesson. And let's not miss this opportunity. Let's not allow the Ahrimanic influences to focus us so much on the materialistic, acting as if we know everything. Acting as if we know all of the rules and that there's a drug to fix everything. It's such a fallacy. Pharmaceutical drugs cannot heal anything. And yet what they do is they suppress, they push more disease deeper into the body so that perhaps it cannot be felt by our sensory experience. So we don't feel the pain any longer. We don't see the inflammation. We think it's gone. We think it's been healed, but it's just been pushed deeper. I'm a big fan of homeopathy. And, in homeopathy and homeopathic remedies, they're chosen because they mimic the symptoms felt by the person. And then their job, the remedy itself, is meant to align the energies, the vital force within the body, to say, oh, that's what that energy is that produces this illness. Now that I can see it more clearly with the help of that homeopathic remedy, I can then release that through the process of detoxification. So in some cases, homeopathy can help enhance detoxification in the removal of that which should not be in the body. But pharmaceutical drugs, They do no such thing. Not only are they not enhancing detoxification, but they do the opposite of homeopathy. In fact, that's why it's called allopathic medicine. Allo means opposite. It's fighting. It's pushing against the natural expression of how this imbalance, this disease, is playing out in the human body. And we need to allow that to go through us. You know, this whole idea, and this is what I will end with because this video is getting a little long, but what I will end with is this. We're being told that there is a virus that has magically eradicated the flu and decreased many other diseases with it, like heart disease and cancer. And this virus, this SARS-CoV-2 whatever virus, is just so pathogenic. We have to be so afraid of it. It's just fear. This is just a control system to, again, and this is very Ahrimanic, what's going on here. It's meant to control humanity with fear and fake science, because the science behind this virus is not truth. And if there is in fact a virus, which I very much think it's probably just the flu, and maybe it's just a bad strain of the flu, or perhaps with other energetic things that are affecting the humans, like 5G and pollution. You know, when the body is very stressed and we have a virus, it's harder to detoxify that, and it can create more symptoms internally. And so people are becoming more and more ill, right? So I'm not negating the people that are feeling sick, and I'm sure people have died from this, as they have died from the flu for many years. But we need to stand up as a humanity and say no, that we need to evolve and let the Christ impulse take us forward, the middle path. Let's find the truth and let's evolve to a newer knowing of the human body and the human karmic expression that we all need to transcend, learn that lesson and move on and live a life of balance and, just joyful awe of the natural sciences that are all around us. The last thing I will say, and I know I said that was the last thing, but I do want to mention that I'm going to be creating a human anatomy and physiology course for natural health professionals, and it's really going to be aligned with the teachings of Dr. Robert Morse. I did through Body Mind Institute, or the UXL, I did teach an anatomy and physiology course, and it was fun. The students were great. It was only 8 weeks long, and I really didn't feel like I could go into the depth that I wanted. So this is going to be kind of an ongoing course, and we will meet weekly, and it will be very interactive. And I'm going to take it slow. There's not going to be a rush through this, because when it comes to spiritual science, I want to come to a state where I feel like we can really appreciate these physiological processes, appreciate the anatomy of the human body, its form, and then look at its function. And we will talk about topics like, the fourth state of water and its role in the distribution of hormones and nutrients within the blood. We will talk about, how blood circulation has really perhaps been something we don't truly understand. When we look at, again, Rudolf Steiner and other ways people describe the heart, in my current allopathic anatomy and physiology course, we describe the heart as a pump. But really, it's not a pump. It can't pump the blood based on the current mechanisms that scientists have described it does. Going from these larger arteries to smaller and smaller arterioles into the capillaries, pumping it through that very small vessel would be almost impractical. And this again is where the fourth state of water comes into play. And that gel-like essence. And what is it really pushing the blood through the body? And then of course I'll get into the lymphatic system, because this is going to be something that is connected to one of my mentors. I think, a spiritual understanding of the human body and the importance of this system that really helps with detoxification, because that's really at the heart of healing. And Dr. Morse, he's such a passionate soul when it comes to healing humanity and reducing suffering on this planet. So I want to educate people about what I've come to know about the human body and share that with all of you. And I will have more information about that in future videos. So I wish you all a beautiful expression of life. Take notice of the spirit in all that you do. Balance that with, the understanding of what you see, and don't be taken advantage of. Don't be directed by fear. Look at both of what's going on, and does it feel right? Does it sit right with you? But understand it. We will end the video here. Have a beautiful day.